I would like to say that today there's going to be interrogation. So I'm going to be interviewed with 60 questions. I'm going to try to answer them as quickly as possible. I'm going to be asked 60 questions related to networking and IT, general questions. And I'm going to try to answer them as quick as possible so that the video doesn't get too long. Okay, we can start.
What is NAT and PAT?
Okay, NAT is a network address translation, and PAT is the port address translation. And I'm going to try to explain it really quickly. So NAT is the tool that translates the public IP address that you have on your router to a private one. So you all know that your IP address at home is a private one. So let's say 192, 168, whatever. This is a private IP address, and this has to be translated into a public one. Because if you request information from google.com, google.com has to deliver this information to you, and it delivers it to your public IP address. But there are another 5 or 6 computers. Let's say your girlfriend is also on the same network. She has the same public IP address like you. Your father, your mother, for example, if you're all together, everybody in this network has the same public IP address. So Google doesn't know your private IP address. It doesn't see it. It only sees the public one. So this helps to identify where are you within the private network. So the PAT, the port address translation, is an additional, is like an overload to NAT. So PAT is an overload. That means that it uses your unique port number, combines it with your IP address, and connects it into one so that Google knows exactly who you are. Google doesn't know exactly who you are. He sends it to the public IP address, and then through that NAT service, it gets distributed. The information gets distributed to you and not to your father or someone else in the network.
How many types of storage do you know?
DAS, DAS, NAS, and SAN.
What is a three-way handshake?
Three-way handshake is the secure way of connecting two devices in a TCP protocol. Via the TCP protocol, it sends one. The first handshake is it sends one packet. The initial peer, the initiating peer, sends one packet. The receiving peer sends it back, and the initiating peer confirms it. So this is the three-way handshake. It's exchanging of packets. Each peer confirms that it received it. Next one.
What are the layers of the OSI modem?
OSI model, the layers, first layer is the physical layer. The second layer is the data link layer. The third layer is starting with the physical part, physical layer, data link layer, networking layer, network layer, transport layer, session layer, presentation layer, application layer. But this is a very conceptual division of the layers. Actually, the TCP/IP model has only 4 layers. Next question, please.
So that was actually the next question. How many layers does the TCP/IP model have?
The TCP/IP model has only 4 layers. Those are data link, a network, transport, and application layer.
What is the difference between fiber channel and iSCSI?
Okay, fiber channel and iSCSI are both protocols. Those are protocols for creating and connecting storages. As the name says, fiber channel is dealing with the fiber optics and iSCSI is another type of connection between the storages. And those are two different protocols and require different configuration. Depending on which protocol you choose, Fibre Channel or iSCSI, you have to configure your storage system in a different way.
What is AJAX?
AJAX is actually a technology for creating a very good user experience when you browse the internet. For example, you open a web page, you would like it to update all the time without you to press the refresh button. So it's a technology that is responsible for constant communicating with the backend server and collecting the changed information, the new information from the backend server. So it constantly collects the information from this backend server in order to the site to be up to date. It's very efficient, it's very smart and efficient, and it collects only the information that it needs. It doesn't load the complete site. It only gets the needed information, the information that has changed, which makes it very fast and efficient. That's AJAX.
And what is an XML HTTP?
XML HTTP request is a request that is sent to the server in order to get information from the server. That's it. Like the XML, it is a language, but it's not a language for programming. It's a language only for storing data. For example, you're sending an XML request to a backend server, a post request, saying, I would like you to give me information about a certain activity or something. And you say, I want information about a cat that is 4 years old, that eats only Whiskas, and that is in Minnesota. For example, you give these parameters and the server searches for them and gives you an answer, which is also an XML answer. It's a file that connects. Okay, cat name is whatever. It gives you again a package of information. This is the XML. XML is not really a language. It's a language not for programming, like I said, but only for storing data. It's not really a language. Next question.
How does AJAX work?
It works based on JavaScript. It sends GET requests to the server, and the server answers and provides the information constantly.
What is DAS?
Direct attached storage. It's a storage that is directly attached, like the name says, to your device. Let's say a USB stick, flash drive is a DAS. An external hard drive is a DAS. Like a small storage, you can attach it directly to the computer. It's directly attached to your computer, so it's a DAS. Everything that you plug in directly to your computer is a DAS.
And what is ANS?
ANS is a authoritative name server. It's the last server you would contact, or the DNS servers would contact, if they're not able to resolve a specific domain name.
What is TLD server?
TLD server is a DNS server, okay? It's a DNS server, one of the DNS servers you would ask if you don't find a resolution for a name. For example, you're searching for the resolution of CNN.com or Yahoo.com, but you cannot find it for some reason. So you start by asking different servers. Do you know it? No, I don't have it. But I can tell you who has it. And this is the top level domain server. For example, yahoo.com has the Yahoo, which is the domain name, which is the primary domain, but there is the .com is the top level of the domain. So this is the server responsible for .com, .ch, .org, .net. For example, one TLD server is only responsible for .com, nothing else. Everything under .com, he's responsible for it, okay? Everything under .net is another TLD server. Everything related to .ch or .org, there is a different server. So this is a top level domain server.
What is a root server?
A root server is the first one who you would ask if you don't find an IP address. So let's say you're typing in your computer the name yahoo.fr. So yahoo.fr is the domain name, okay? But the first thing that your computer does is to find if in its own host file, if it has it somewhere. So he starts looking and he doesn't find it. So then he asks your internet internet service provider, do you have it? Do you have the IP address of yahoo.fr? And the internet service provider shows in his domain server, which is the resolver, and looks at his cache memory, and he says, oh, no, I don't have it. And then he has to ask someone, and he asks the root server. This is the first of the servers that are being asked about the resolution of a certain domain name. Then if he doesn't have it, he sends the IP address of the specific top level domain, and if he doesn't have it, he sends the IP address of the authoritative name server. This is the last. He should have anything. He should have all the information.
What is the difference between a modem and a router?
The modem and a router. The modem is just a device that modulates or demodulates the signal. So your signal coming from the cable, from the phone cable or TV cable, it has a certain parameters, and it's an analog signal. And this signal has to be modulated, has to be translated, has to be transformed into a digital signal. So this is what the modem does. And the router routes the information to different devices. Normally, a modern router has all the components. A modern router is at the same time a modem, a switch, an access point, a router, everything. So normally a modem is part of the modern routers, but the modem has a different function. It only modulates. What we have in our homes, we call it a router, but it's actually a combi device. It's a combination of many components. Next question.
What types of routers do you know?
Well, routers, I would say broadband routers and shortband routers, I guess, like different types of in terms of frequency, but normally every router right now is a broadband router.
What is the difference between VPN and proxy?
VPN server, and a certain degree they have the same functionality. So basically you get the server to act on your behalf so that nobody knows who you are. Everything that you do on the internet is done by another computer, not by you, by another computer. And the proxy server, the connection between you, the client, and the proxy server is not necessarily an encrypted one, whereas the connection between you and the VPN server is an encrypted connection. So that means that your connection is secure, and not only they cannot trace you back who you are, but they can not get the information between you and the VPN server. It's encrypted, and there is a tunnel between you and the VPN server. It's mostly the security. And the proxy server, the other difference is the proxy server is mostly configured only to deal with browsing, but not with all the traffic, you know. Next question.
What is SOX proxy?
SOX proxy is the only proxy that is configured to deal with all the traffic of the certain client, not only the browsing, but all the software that is contacting the internet, all types of programs, all types of updates. Everything goes through that proxy server. So not only browsing, but everything, all the traffic, all the internet traffic goes through that proxy, the SOX proxy.
What is a reverse proxy?
A reverse proxy is the other process. The server is hiding behind another server. Basically, the server, the web server, let's say, is hiding behind another proxy server. So you are contacting yahoo.fr, right? And you think that you would connect to a server with the IP address 20.20.20.30, let's say. But in fact, you are connecting with another server that you are not able to see. So it's the first one is that yahoo.fr is not able to see who you are, what your real IP address is, and the reverse proxy is you don't know who yahoo.fr is. You don't know the real server that you're connecting because it's going through a proxy. That's the difference.
What is a load balancer?
A load balancer is basically a reverse proxy. You can imagine a group of servers. Many servers are connected to one proxy server. That proxy server is their proxy to the client. So any client who is contacting Yahoo.fr has not one server. Yahoo.fr is not on one server, is on 15 servers. Okay, and you are connecting the proxy server, and the proxy server is delivering the request to a specific one of the 15 Yahoo.fr servers. Yahoo.fr. Everyone has a different IP address, and this proxy server is sending the request to a specific one. But which one? The one that has the least load. So it balances the load. That's what he does. It's a server that says, okay, I have a request for yahoo.fr, but I'm not going to send it to the same server. I'm going to look in my list which one has the least traffic, and I'm going to send it to this one, so that not that one of the servers gets overloaded and the other ones are doing nothing, like jerking around. And so that the load is evenly distributed throughout several servers. That's the load balancer basically. Next.
Okay. And what is initiating TCP peer?
It's between, like, for example, if you want to start communication and you are one device and you want to communicate with another device, you are initiating the request. It's the beginning of the three-way handshake. You're sending a packet, he sends a packet back, and you confirm. So this is the initiating and the receiving. The two parties are the initiating TCP, the initiating peer, and the receiving peer.
Give me 3 examples of a physical protocol.
Physical protocol, 3 examples would be Ethernet protocol, DSL protocol, and token ring protocol. It's on the physical layer of the OSI layer structure of the OSI model.
Okay. Give me 2 examples for transport protocols.
Transport protocols are the most common ones are TCP and UDP.
Give me 3 examples of network protocols.
Network protocols would be IP4, IP6, IPsec.
Okay.
Internet
and
protocols.
Give me 3 examples of application protocols.
Application protocols, 3, those would be, let's say, FTP protocol, HTTP protocol, SMTP, IMAP. Those are 4.
Okay. And what port is used by SMTP and POP3 protocols?
SMTP is 25 and POP is 110.
What port is used by FTP protocol?
21
Yes,
and 20. The funny thing about FTP is it has two ports. One is for the client and one is for the server.
What port gets used by HTTP?
HTTP 80.
What port is used by HTTPC?
HTTPS. HTTPS uses port 443.
What port is used by DNS?
DNS uses port 53.
UDP.
UDP, yes.
What port is used by DHCP?
DHCP uses port 67 for the client and 68 for the server.
It's the other way around. It's 67 for the server and 68 for the client.
Okay, I didn't know that.
What port is used by MAPI?
MAPI uses port 143 and 993.
Is it the same for IMAP?
Yeah,
Okay.
143 and 993.
Okay. What port does LDAP use?
LDAP, LDAP, 389.
Yeah. What is the purpose of a dynamic IP address?
The purpose of dynamic IP address is mostly for the client, not for a server, because a client, for example, you or anybody who's surfing the internet or using network for some purposes, doesn't necessarily need to have a static IP which is always the same. It can be different anytime. And the purpose is that, for example, if you are using internet for a week and then you go on holiday and you don't use the internet anymore, or you don't use your internet, you don't need to have this IP address all the time assigned. Somebody else may need it or might need it. You don't have to block it so that nobody else can use it. So on regular basis, you get assigned a new one. If you, for example, today you go to the internet, you receive one IP address. Tomorrow you go again, you receive another one, because the service provider doesn't know if you go on the internet every day. So if you don't go to the internet for 2 or 3 weeks, you don't have to block an IP address that can be used by another person.
And what's the purpose of static IP address?
The purpose of the static IP address is more on the server side. As far as I know, it's more on the server side. The servers are devices that are always on. They are always on. All the servers, for example, the servers for yahoo.fr, yahoo.com, facebook.com, google.com, those servers have to be up and running all the time. So they have to be able to be contacted anytime, during the night, day, night, whatever. They have to be up always. So in order to be reachable all the time, they have to have always the same IP address. They cannot change the IP address every time. It will get confused. It will create confusion. So that's why servers are always assigned static IP addresses, and clients, they don't need a static IP address. They get assigned a dynamic one. Next question.
Is 192.167.11.11 a private IP address?
192.167, it's not a private IP address because it's not in the private IP range. The private IP range is from 192.168.0.0 until 192.168.255.255, and this is apparently not in the range.
So is 172.32.55.55 a private or a public?
It's a public one. It's a public IP address because the last one, which is private, is 172.31.255.255. That's the last one which is in this range. And then from 172.32. whatever, they're all public. So this is a public one.
How can I see the open port on my machine?
A very good question. It's a very complicated question. It's netstat -a. You have to type it in your CMD in the command prompt, and you get the ports listed as listening. You will get a table where you get the ports, the IP addresses, and the ports, and and then it will say listening or closed, so you can see the open ones and the closed ones. Netstat is the command.
What is the HD access files?
HD access file is a file that stores settings about rules and restrictions regarding for example, if you want to block someone from going to specific websites and you want to block them, you configure this in this file.
What is forward lookup in DNS?
Forward lookup is if you want to see what the IP address is behind the name. For example, you want to know the IP address of the computer, of the server hosting yahoo.fr. So you type nslookup and you type on command prompt, you type the name of the website and it gives you the IP address.
And what is reverse lookup in DNS?
And reverse lookup is if you only have an IP address of a certain web page, of a certain server, and you want to see what is the domain name of that server, and then the other way around. You want to have the name, but you have only the IP address.
What is an ACL?
ACL is an access control list. It's a way of securing the traffic, if to provide a basic security for the traffic. For example, every router has this access control list, or can have this access control list configured, and it defines what traffic goes in and what traffic goes out in terms of ranges of IP addresses and subnet masks. So, for example, you can block the source IP addresses from this IP to this IP address, that range, you can block it. And you can block also the destination IP addresses from this range to that range. So you can actually it's a way of providing security on a very basic level through the router. So you can really block certain web pages through this list. You can enter these parameters in this access control list, and the traffic gets controlled. It's one of the many layers of filtering and protection, like firewall, like proxy server, like many layers of security. So that's one of them.
What is NIC?
NIC is a network interface card or network interface controller, which is like a plate, like a card that is integrated in every computer, is your network card. And you plug your LAN cable in this card, and you get internet. Basically, that's the hardware responsible for the network.
Does NIC have a separate MAC address?
Yeah, it does.
What types of LAN cables are available?
I know Cat5, Cat6, and Cat7, for example.
Okay, what is CCNA?
It's a certification provided by Cisco. It's like a network certification that you can get and provide it and become a certified network engineer.
What is CCNP?
CCNP is like I think the next level of certification. It's the professional. It's a certification by Cisco for network professionals.
What is CompTIA Network Plus?
One of the many certifications by CompTIA. This is like it's a private trading group actually, but it provides also certifications. It's another type of networking certification.
How many gigabit per second can Cat6 cable support?
1.
What does the 24 mean after the IP address?
You get a / then 24 after the IP address, and you're wondering, okay, what is this /24 after the IP address? I was wondering about this for a long time. But this actually tells you what the submask is. For example, which part of the IP address belongs to the network and which one belongs to the subnetwork. You said 24. Every part of the IP address, the IP address has 4 segments. Every segment has 8 digits. So 8 plus 8 plus 8, 3 times 8, 24. They're reserved for the network. And the last 8 octets, the last 8 digits, are reserved for the subnetwork.
What does the 16 mean after the IP address?
16 is the same principle. You see, first 8 is reserved, second 8 is reserved, so 16, and then that would mean that that your subnet mask would look like 255.255.0.0. So the last 2 ones are reserved for your subnetwork.
So what does the 8 mean after the IP address?
The 8 would mean that your subnetwork is a very large one. This is fairly unusual. that your subnetwork is so large. This is on a very large level. So that means that 255 is for the first 8 octets, the first octet, the first 8 digits are reserved for the network, and the last 3 segments are reserved for the subnetwork. So that would mean 255.0.0.0.
And what is HSRP?
Hot standby routing protocol. It's a routing protocol.
The difference between Linux and Ubuntu?
Ubuntu is Linux, but it's a version of Linux. It's Linux with a graphical interface. Ubuntu is using the Linux kernel, and if you install Linux, you only have like a black screen where you can just type commands and nothing else. Like there is no user, it's not user friendly. And Ubuntu looks a little bit like Windows. You open Ubuntu and you can see folders, programs, you can double click on programs, and there is the user interface part, whereas on Linux there is nothing, you can't see any graphical stuff.
How to resolve a domain name?
You can resolve a domain name by typing nslookup, and then you type the domain name, then type enter. This happens on CMD, command prompt. You type enter and you see the IP address hiding behind that domain name.
What is IoT?
IoT is Internet of Things. I'm going to explain it very, very quickly. When you hear the term Internet of Things, what you should imagine under Internet of Things, because people often don't realize. You imagine that you have a company, you are a farmer, and you have like many cows, and you wanna. It's a way to track everything. It's a way to put a sensor of every piece of equipment that you have. Like you put a sensor on the cow, you put a sensor on the cow, a GPS, which sends data to the server where this cow is, and on your horse, and you put a sensor on her ass, on the cow's ass, and that measures how many times your cow is farting per day, records this and sends it to a server. And so you have all this data. Where does the cow go? How many kilometers? You can make a sensor of the cow of counting the steps. So how many kilometers does the cow walk? Is the cow walking per day? How many times does the cow fart? How many times does the cow eat? You can make sensors of everything. Then you collect the data. You analyze the data, so you know, okay, my herd, my group of cows has been walking for 2 kilometers, 2 kilometers per month. It has farted 2-3 times a day, 10 times a day. It has eaten whatever. It's a way to surveil objects or people or whatever completely. So you get the data of everything. So this is the Internet of Things. Basically that everything gets its IP address. For example, this, you can install a special bulb here on this lamp that has an IP address. You can install a special bulb over there which has another IP address, and they're connected to a network, and you can control those 2 lamps. You can be in another city and say, okay, I want this lamp to be turned off for 20 minutes. I want this lamp to burn, to be lighting. And you can then at the end of the month you can see how much this bulb has been operating, how much this bulb, how much that bulb, how much this one, how much that one, everything. How much was the fridge? What was the average temperature of the fridge? Because the fridge also has an IP address, and the door also has an IP address because it has a sensor, and you can see how many times your door has been opened and closed. It's a total surveillance. So you're
The same like the farming with the cows.
yeah, the same thing. It's like the smart home. That's the Internet of Things.
Can you explain it briefly?
The Internet of Things is a collection of data from many sensors in a factory or home or city or country or whatever. It's a collection of many sensors which gets analyzed, and you can have a statistic of certain things.
So if you're away from home, you can control your TV, your lamps, the alarm, whatever you wish.
You can control pretty much every part of equipment that you have. You can build a sensor on every part of the equipment, even on the door, on the fridge, on your microwave. You can place sensor on them, or you can, in the future, maybe all the equipment that you're buying will have these sensors built in, so that you will have the IP addresses of your lamp, of your TV, of your fridge, of your cook, of everything. So we will know how much time I've been using the microwave, how much time I've been using the oven.
Okay,
But the question is, do we really want to know? Is this so important?
No. What an edge server means, can you explain briefly?
An edge server is a server that is very close to the sensor of this particular device. For example, you have a surveillance camera outside that has to turn on when something is moving. Okay, but it turns on when wind is blowing and just only a little piece or just an animal is moving. Okay, and the camera is recording this, recording this small animal. But it doesn't have to, because it's not important. So you install an edge server close to that camera that analyzes all that stuff and says, okay, this one with the mouse that is going on the street, I delete. This one with the leaf on the street floating in the air but still got recorded, I delete. I delete everything that is unnecessary, and then I send all this data to the server.